Hello, Year 12 psychologist, Mr. Cornell here. I'm not with you during period 5 today because I've had to attend a medical appointment. But I want to set you work for you today for period 5, let you know what I want you to do and to talk you through a little bit. So what I'd like you to do, please, in your textbooks or on your chapter notes is turn to page 55, not 55, Pete, sorry, turn to page 53. And we're going to talk about evaluating, so AO3, evaluating the theory of interference that we looked at the other day. So interference theory is a theory of forgetting from long-term memory that says the reason we forget information is because one memory interferes with another memory. Now, interference can be proactive. So proactive interference is when prior learning interferes with more recent learning or future learning. Retroactive interference is when something that we're learning now interferes with our recall of something that we remember previously. But the upshot is that ultimately interference is when different memories interfere with one another and stop those memories from being accurate. Interference, we know, is supported by lots and lots of research evidence, and we know that interference is most likely when the two items of information being learned are similar. So how do we evaluate interference theory? What are its strengths and weaknesses? We have a look on page 53. There are 5 points of evaluation. As always, I want you to complete one of our yellow sheets where you're going to select the 4 most useful bits of evaluation for evaluating interference theory. I'm going to go through what I think the most relevant 4 bits of evaluation are. And you're going to fill those in your yellow sheets, remembering to break each one down into those 3 components. What is your evaluative point? What's the elaborated detail? How do we explain that? And then finally, what's the this shows that? What is this demonstrating? What's the link to interference theory? The first issue is an issue with the research itself, and as is often the case with research related to cognitive psychology, it's that issue of artificiality. Again, what we're looking at is study after study where the focus is on people memorising word list after word list after word list. Arguably, this is highly artificial. This is not how we use our memories in everyday life. In everyday life, we use our memories to learn information, remember arrangements, remember people's names and faces. It's not often that we have to learn great big long lists of words. So there's a problem there with artificiality, not just because of the content of what people are learning, but also because participants might lack the motivation to learn the information that they're subsequently being tested on. Okay, so that's the first point of evaluation. The second point of evaluation is that interference theory is quite limited in the circumstances of forgetting that it actually explains. It's very good at explaining why people forget when they've confused 2 memories of something that are fairly similar. But there's lots and lots of types of forgetting that it doesn't really relate to, that it can't really explain. So this evaluative point is that interference theory on its own is inadequate as a theory of forgetting. It is a theory that is supported by evidence, but in all likelihood, it only explains certain types of forgetting under very specific circumstances. So we need other theories of forgetting that explain other aspects of forgetting. The third criticism is regarding accessibility versus availability. Okay, so interference theory suggests that information is forgotten because it's interfered with other memories. Now, other theories like retrieval failure theory that we're going to study after half term says, generally speaking, when we forget something, it's not that the information isn't available, it's there, it's in our long-term memory, but forgetting it means that at that moment in time, it's not accessible. Okay, so the memory is there, it is available, it's just not accessible. And psychologists like Tulving and Sotka, who you can read about actually at the bottom of page 55, brilliant study, please read it, bottom of page 53, they're able to show in their experiment that they got rid of interference effects by giving people retrieval cues. So if they gave people prompts and cues to help them access information into long-term memory, information that appeared lost because of interference suddenly could be recalled. So this suggests that actually other theories like retrieval failure theory are better than interference theory because the use of retrieval cues can be used to retrieve memories that otherwise were considered to be lost. So this is the idea of, when we're talking about forgetting, we need to make a distinction between accessibility of information and the availability of information. The fourth bit of AO3, or evaluation you can refer to, relates to how interference theory can be used productively in the real world. So this is evaluation by identifying real world applications. Any theory in psychology that has a useful application to the real world, that's a positive piece of evaluation, okay? And it's believed that interference theory does have positive applications to the real world. So, for example, Danaher did a research based on advertising. And they looked at different approaches to advertising, and they found that a lot of advertisers, they advertise their product over, a number of adverts over a number of weeks or even months. And they found that that could be problematic, because what would happen is that the message of your advert would interfere with the messages of other adverts, particularly likely where other companies are advertising similar products. So if you've got multiple companies, advertising supermarkets, it might be that your Asda advert, released several times over a week, over a number of weeks, the messages in your Asda advert might just get confused with the messages in the Aldi advert and the Morrison's advert. Danaher therefore suggested that actually interference was less likely if a company, in terms of advertising, if instead of spreading their advertising out over weeks and weeks and weeks, if they went really, really strong with their adverts, releasing multiple adverts, in quick succession over a couple of days, by doing that, you reduce the likelihood of interference occurring, and therefore you quickly, flood people's memories with that information through lots of repeat bursts. And they found that this helped advertisers to maximise the effectiveness of their campaigns by going big on their messages, particularly at the start of an advertising campaign, because by repeating that message in quick succession, that avoided the effects of interference that could otherwise affect advertising. Okay, so there you go. So there's 4 bits of evaluation that we can use to essentially criticise interference theory. Ultimately, you'll be even better placed to criticise interference theory once we've done retrieval failure theory. Out of the 2, retrieval failure theory tends to be the better theory of forgetting. It can explain more instances of forgetting, and it can explain how this distinction between the accessibility of a memory and the availability of a memory is really, really important. Retrieval failure can explain how memories can be available, but the issue might just be accessibility. Hence information being on the tip of the tongue. It's there, we know it, we know we can remember it, we know it's in long-term memory, but we just can't access it. Retrieval failure theory can explain that. Interference theory can't. Okay, so what I want you to do for today's lesson is to complete your yellow sheet, complete it really well, complete it in detail. Remember, at the end of the day, what you're doing here is you are rehearsing writing effective AO3 paragraphs. You know they're going to come into a future assessment, so do a really, really good job of that. I've also got some structured notes that I can give you that you can fill in over the course of the lesson. The aim is by the end of this lesson, and certainly by the end of your homework, to have absolutely covered interference theory, so we're ready to start retrieval failure theory when we're back after half term. Okay, I have, by the way, marked your assessments, the last assessments that you've done. If Miss Vaughan will let me, I will come into your psychology lesson tomorrow to let you have those assessments back and to give you a little bit of feedback, because I know a lot of you are really keen to know your results before half term. So I'll come into the lesson tomorrow to do that. Okay, work hard today, do a really good job of this work, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.